Have you ever read a book before? Well, I know a lot of you haven't, but just pretend you did. And it's like the best book in the world. You're reading it, you feel so involved in it, the characters are great, the plot line's great, and you're thinking, wow, imagine if they made this into a movie. And then they do. That is how I felt when I learned The Long Walk, one of the best books I've ever read, was being released in theaters this September. So in this video, I'll be talking about 3 characters and their major film differences between their book character and the movie character. By the way, there will be spoilers, and I will let you know when we get to them. So first up, we have Curly. Curly is, I think, the first mentioned in the book right before he receives his ticket. The book doesn't go into huge description of him besides, quote-unquote, Olsen jerked his thumb at this skinny, gangling boy in blue jeans. Curly had been trying to cultivate his sideburns, but the sideburns had failed, end quote. So I'm not gonna lie, when I first read this, I had no idea what it meant by trying to cultivate sideburns, and it just did not register through my head what that meant. So I did forget to draw sideburns on him. Please forgive me, I know I'm not accurate. It's like the only description he has, and I just totally forgot. He is also later described to have a quote-unquote lean and earnest face and something about being able to concentrate. I always imagined Curly, you're never gonna guess this, I always imagined him to have curly hair. Whoa, what a surprise. I just imagined him having a very anxious face, and it's like, wow, I'm so smart, he's about to die. I didn't put much thought into his actual appearance until I started to draw him. And I think that's honestly one of the saddest parts of the book, is how easy you can forget the characters. It's probably what the audience in the book felt while watching. Like, it kind of describes it like the audience was placing bets on the people, who was going to win, who was going to lose. You can't remember all these people, and it's sad. And I feel like that happens in real life a lot, so it's just kind of sad thinking about that while reading the book. I've always imagined Curly to have like a more orange gingerish kind of hair, so I kind of just did that and went with it. And I did just kind of get lazy and drew the striped shirt on him just like he had in the movie, because I mean, like, why not? Speaking of the movie, I was really surprised to see Roman Griffin Davis in it. When I first watched the trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the guy from Jojo Rabbit. And I thought that was super cool. And I was kind of disappointed when I found out he was going to be Curly, because I would have loved to see him in a bigger role in the movie, but he did really great as Curly, in my opinion. I really do love thriller and horror movies, and I don't normally get scared. Like, I'm not trying to say that as, like, I'm edgy or whatever, like, oh, I don't get scared. But while watching this movie, I felt really worried during it. Well, not really, but I was worried. Random thing, but I always hated the timed levels during video games because I absolutely hated the concepts of countdowns. They always made me much more tense and caused me to mess up, which I feel like that's probably for a lot of people. I think that's why The Long Walk was such an effective horror for me, because it is difficult to imagine not being able to do anything while there's a countdown going off before you die. And I think Roman really sold that this is it kind of mentality right before his character, you know? So, good job to him. I think one of the biggest differences between the book and the movie is how helpful the boys were. And you're probably thinking, whoa, what do you mean? If you haven't read the book. At the beginning, Ray was actually really helping Curly when he first started struggling with his leg. Like, he had, like, Curly, I think, kind of, like, propped on him. He's like, come on, keep going, keep going. The book was much more morbid with it. Like, when Curly's leg begins loosening after he got his Charlie horse, it states, Garrity felt a grudging disappointment. He wanted to be sure someone got a ticket before he did, end quote. Next up, we have Gary Barkovich. So, Gary is, a lot more tame in the movie. Like, you're probably thinking, oh, well, give me an example. Yeah, I can't. I cannot give an example of what Gary says. You can read the book yourself. I can't. Gary is first introduced while they are walking. Guess what? Quote unquote. You have to pace yourself. You have to focus on yourself. You have to have a plan. I'm Gary Barkovich, by the way. My home is in Washington, D.C. End quote. Such a nerd. In the movie, Gary is first introduced whenever they're all sitting right before the walk, And I don't remember much of it. He seemed nice, and then all of a sudden, Hank Olsen, like, made fun of him for calling his grandma Meemaw. And apparently, just pure anger was unleashed after Hank Olsen did that, because Gary just turned into a jerk afterwards. And that's basically what happened in the book. It describes him as having olive skin with a dark, intense look. He's also described as having a jacket with a collar. And you're probably thinking, why do you think that's so important? I want to get back to that. It also describes Gary to have hooded dark brown eyes. And you're probably thinking, okay, you've given us all the details about this guy, so why were all these details so important to you, especially the jacket? I feel really embarrassed to admit this, but whenever it mentioned for the first time him having a collared jacket, I honestly thought, oh, he has a leather jacket. And then one thought led to another, and I thought, oh, this is Butch from Fallout 3. Gary's character is pretty similar to the movie's one. He passes away in the same way, but I don't think he had a spoon when he did in the book. Gary in the movie, he's like, hey, he's like hanging on to Ray. He's like, hey, you'll let me in, right? And he's like, yeah, Gary, you crazy guy. And Gary's like, you will, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, watch this, and he just, yeah, I can't describe it, but yeah. And it was really unnerving to watch him hold that spoon, because I knew what was about to happen, and I was like, oh my gosh. So in the book, and this also happened in the movie, one of the boys gets a severe case of diarrhea, and he soon passes away afterwards. And in the book, it says, quote unquote, Travis rolled over and grimaced at the sky. This is the kid who had diarrhea. Someone retched noisily and was warned. It sounded to Garrity as if he was spewing his whole belly up hole. He'll go next, Harkness said in a businesslike way, end quote. Harkness did not care. He was very weird. And then it goes on to say, no one replied. Harkness looked ashamed and began to polish his glasses again. The boy who vomited was not shot. All the boys are kind of like this in the book. I feel like this really brings out the worst in people, is to make them walk. Exercise brings the worst out in people, is what I honestly really got from the book. Harkness is first mentioned in actually the very beginning of chapter 2, where he says, quote unquote, I'm Harkness, number 49. You're Garrity, number 47, right? End quote. Garrity looked at Harkness, who wore glasses and had a crew cut. I forgot to give him a crew cut. Oops, I'm reading this out loud right now and realized I gave him curly hair, so my bad. Harkness' face was red and sweaty. That's right. Harkness had a notebook. He wrote Garrity's name and number in it. The script was strange and jerky, bumping up and down as he walked. He ran into a fellow named Collie Parker, who told him to watch where he was going. I had to cut out a word right there. Harkness goes on to continue to get numbers and names from people. Harkness's death was very sad. I feel like it really showed just how depraved the world had become at this point, because in the book and in the movie it mentions, I believe, 2 kids watching him right before he buys his ticket. Interesting how in a lot of these games it always mentions an audience watching, whether it's the Hunger Games or, well, actually in Battle Royale they didn't, but like in the Hunger Games and in the Long Walk it mentions people watching and bidding on these people, these teenagers. Harkness's death was different in the movie than in the book, because in the book Harkness, he ran away from everyone to where no one could see him when he died. But in the movie, it was very much different. He was actually behind everyone. I think the movie did a decent job on that. I don't remember seeing Harkness very much of the movie, but it did mention his book, which I think was a very important thing. And apparently, I just drew the glasses and I gave him a polo kind of shirt with a collar. And I forgot to mention he had a crew cut. So props to the movie for actually remembering what he looked like. I wanted to mention this. The biggest problem I had with the movie personally was it didn't talk about the audience enough in The Long Walk. In the book, it really described how there were stadiums of people actually watching these boys and placing bets on them and cheering them on. And it describes how the less and less boys there were, the more and more people there were. And I feel like, especially in our day and time, it was such an important commentary, I felt, and I was really upset they didn't include it more in the movie. We see this with Squid Games, especially how it made like a social commentary about how we just watch people play games and bet on them no matter what the cost is. And you can definitely see the comparison of The Long Walk with the Squid Games. Definitely with the money prize and how there's only one person last standing. It's just really interesting how, especially in our age and time, after the Squid Games was released, the first thing people did was make real-life Squid Game videos and TV shows. And I feel like that really undermines the important commentary about these books and these shows, explaining how it's becoming more and more prominent that people are not caring and not having empathy for others when it's in a almost TV-like stance. It was overall a really good movie just for it to be a movie, and I really enjoyed it. And the actors, I believe, did great. And there was great cinematography during the movie, and I really enjoyed it. If you like this video, please like it, because I can make another video about the characters, because there's a lot more things I like to talk about, like the ending especially. So just like the video, and I'll be like, oh, people actually like this, so I will make another video. Thank you for watching. Bye.